Before starting off, I think that our thoughts or prayers are with the Humboldt community and the Petrie family. I wasn't sure if I should be wearing a jersey today because I know it's Jersey Day, but we just decided it might not be the best thing. But after we leave here, I'm going to Barrie, and it'll probably be the first time I ever scout wearing a hockey jersey, but I will do so in honor of Humboldt. Obviously, we finished in 30th place. It's really not acceptable. A full evaluation is under process, and I'll be ready for your questions. Pour commencer, je voulais juste dire quelques mots en français aussi. Nos pensées, nos prières sont avec les gens de Humboldt et la famille Pitre. On ne savait pas si c'était la bonne chose à porter un gilet de hockey ce matin, mais après cette conférence de presse, je m'en vais à Barrie ce soir. Et en honneur des gens de Humboldt, je vais faire du recrutement ce soir en portant un chandail de hockey des Sénateurs. Les questions? Questions, please. And I got a lot of time.
Pierre, Ian Mendes with TSN 1200. I got two questions for you, if you don't mind. Number one, you've talked about a full evaluation process being underway, and you indicated the coaches were under that. Do you have a timeline of when you might make a decision on Guy Boucher's future one way or another?
Yes, a full evaluation of the coaching staff is underway right now, top to bottom. There's no real timeline. We want to give ourselves enough time to make a really thorough evaluations. We said no harsh decisions were going to be right after the season. I don't think it's for now. I don't think it's for the next 2 weeks, but at some point in time, we'll make a decision, but I don't see it in the month of April.
And my second question would be, one of the things that came out of the town hall meetings, it seemed to be yourself and Eugene Melnick were very critical of the coverage of the media that we gave you this season. So I guess my question to you, Pierre, would be, how would you like the local media to cover a team that finished in 30th place out of 31 in the National Hockey League?
Yeah, and that's a fair question, Ian. That's more than fair. I think, first of all, as the head of the hockey myself, and I'll just talk about my perspective on things because that's the only perspective I can give, is I probably had to be better this year. You know, probably have to apologize to our fans. I have to apologize to our fans. An example of that is I said a tongue-in-cheek comment in the middle of January where I said, you know, if Gretzky got traded, well, anyone else can get traded. And obviously directions were pointed at a certain player. And that probably wasn't the right thing to say at that time. And for that, I need to apologize to our fans. When it comes with dealing with the media and the people here, we have to be better. We have to do it more often. We finished in 30th place. We have to accept criticism. As long as the criticism is the truth. And I think some things that were reported weren't even close to the truth. And the problem is in the world that we live in right now, it becomes sensationalized and probably should have addressed it head on. But at the same time, I think you guys have to, whatever you report on, check your facts. If you're going to start rumors, that's a scary, you know, be careful. Make sure it's not like a friend of three cousins, NHL people, you know, that's all. And I say this with the utmost respect because 99% of the people in this room I respect. So it's just check your facts. That's all. If you want to criticize us because we're in 30th place, that is your right. And you have no issues with that because we weren't very good this year. And we have to accept it. And as a second-year general manager, I have to take part of that blame and that responsibility. But we have to be better at it. There's no doubt about it. These 3 town halls that we did, it opened our eyes. It opened my eyes. We care about our fans, you know, and for anyone that stayed for the 3 of them, I stayed and I spoke to fans, took their questions. You know, a few people came up, said, I was too nervous to ask you, can I ask you this? And had some great conversations with some fans afterwards, just about we need to be better. And the message that we put out there needs to be better. Is that good?
Yep. To your right here, Pierre. Bruce Garriock.
Post Media.
with the coach, how long do you said you're not going to make a decision before the end of April. What has to go into this decision? And answer that first.
Okay.
I guess follow up.
I think the first and foremost thing right now is going to do a bit of scouting. Going to go to Belleville this weekend. Rochester Friday, Belleville Saturday. Not sure about Sunday if I'm going to go junior game or Toronto where Belleville plays. And then the lottery. After that, during this process, we're going to sit down, figure out what we need to do. And at that point in time, we'll make a decision. We still all think that Guy's a very good coach. Don't get me wrong here. But when you finish in 30th place, I think you have to evaluate everything.
But if he's back, what areas does he have to improve in? And one of the things I see in him is that he's stubborn. And does he have to be more open-minded to making changes?
That's a good question, Bruce. If he's back, I think things need to change. And they were addressed during the season. Guy and myself, or Guy and ourselves, will have meetings. We'll address things. But I think Guy has the toughest job in Ottawa. I've said that multiple times. The toughest job in Ottawa is head coach of the Ottawa Senators. During the course of the season, we have little interchanges, but we believe that having Guy coach with an open mind is the best way for our success. So during the course of the season, we'll bring up little things that we feel maybe could improve, but at the same time, he's the coach and we're going to let him be the coach. At the end of the season, we had about a 2-hour meeting. There were quite a few things that were addressed. Because to us, this is unacceptable. The one thing I will say is 2 things that will change, that's for sure, if he's back, is the implementation of younger players in our lineup. But he will decide who gets what ice time, and we're going to practice more. Rest is a weapon. If I hear that one more time, I'll go crazy. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Pierre?
Hey, Don.
Don Brennan with Post Media, Ottawa Sun and Ottawa Citizen. I don't know who said it from the town hall meeting. It was either yourself or Melnick, but the 3 to 5 year period that you're putting on winning the Stanley Cup, I'm curious as to why it's that long of a period. We've seen Colorado Avalanche this year come from the basement to a playoff spot. We've seen NHL teams in the past finish the 8th spot in the playoffs and meet for the finals. It would seem to me that there can be a quicker turnaround. Is there a reason why you guys, one of you, have dubbed 3 to 5 years?
No, and that comment came from Mr. Melnick, but it's also part of our plan. We're not going to go from a team right now that can be a Stanley Cup favorite next year. But at the same time, we think we can. Step one is to start making the playoffs next year, but be there for every year. We don't want to be in the playoffs every other year. And for that, there might be a bit of lumps, and there might be an implementation of younger players in lineup so we can build so when they reach their potential in 3 to 5 years, they're at their best. So I think that was that was the intention stated. We want to be a playoff team every year. When this puck drops next year, I think it'll be October 4th, 5th, or 6th, wherever date it is, in early October, we want to feel that we're a perennial playoff team every year and build towards the Stanley Cup in 3 to 5 years.
Can I just ask the one more question?
Yeah, for sure.
There seems to be some sort of a image issue with the owner and the fans, with the fans. I'm just wondering how much goes into, and obviously, like at the town hall, when the Erik Karlsson subject comes up, people are obviously, everybody knows where they stand in terms of the fans on that issue. How much of what the fans want go into, it might be a stupid question, but how much of the fans want go into making a decision on an Erik Karlsson and what you're going to offer him?
Well, I think we have to listen and respect our fans. I think they're the backbone of the organization, especially the season seat members that participated in the town hall and the ones that were able and not be able to be there. We are going to make the best hockey decisions for this organization moving forward. But we listen to our fans.
Pierre, Sylvain Saint-Laurent du Droit, tu as une équipe complète d'entraîneurs, pas juste un entraîneur-chef. Est-ce que tous les entraîneurs présentement sont en train de se faire évaluer? Puis est-ce que ce serait possible qu'il y ait des changements dans le personnel qui n'impliquent pas nécessairement l'entraîneur-chef?
Tous les entraîneurs se font évaluer en ce moment. Je ne sais pas si je peux élaborer là-dessus parce qu'ils sont tous en train de se faire évaluer. Puis quand que ça vient, je ne peux pas en dire plus parce que qu'est-ce que je te dis, c'est le processus qui est en chemin, en train de se faire.
Terry Marcotte from CTV. Are buying out players an option this summer for you?
Yes. I think out of respect to the players that we've discussed it, for now, we're going to keep it internally. But in the exit interviews, it was brought up with more than one player.
Monsieur Dorion, si je peux me permettre deux petites questions en français. Vous avez parlé du processus de réflexion concernant Guy Boucher. J'aimerais vous entendre en français sur qu'est-ce qui va mener votre décision à terme concernant son avenir.
Lorsque ça vient à l'avenir de Guy Boucher, le processus d'évaluation est en train de se faire en ce moment. Aucune décision va être prise dans ce mois ici. Je pense que nous autres, on regarde, on va continuer à faire du recrutement. On va regarder la loterie qui est le 28 avril. Par la suite, on va prendre ces quelques semaines de réflexion. Par la suite, on va prendre la décision. On pense encore que Guy est un excellent entraîneur. On ne va pas y enlever ses qualités parce qu'il a fait de l'excellent travail pendant les 2 ans ici. Mais en même temps, on a fini au 30e rang et il faut qu'on évalue cette situation.
C'est important aussi pour vous d'entretenir l'espoir pour vos partisans. Qu'est-ce que vous pouvez leur lancer comme message concernant Erik Karlsson?
Eric est ici. On veut qu'il soit ici pour longtemps.
Did you say last night at the town hall, Pierre, that you are going to keep that pick regardless?
99.9%.
It's just...
We never know what can happen, Bruce, but we've had the chance to go scout quite a bit. I've had the chance with our scouting background, and let me make it clear. I'm going to scout not because of the number of scouts we have. I think I can help Trent Mann and the scouting staff with my experience. And I've had the chance to see who they think is the top 5. We've even gone outside the top 10, 12, just to make sure if they felt that, anyone else could be in that range. And it's a very good draft. We're excited that we got 2 first-round picks this year. And we think that these 2 picks can be cornerstones of our franchise, especially when you have a top 5 pick. Franchise hasn't had a top 5 pick, I think, one in the last 17 years. If I'm off on my numbers here, I apologize. But we think that can be really a big stepping stone in us being a contending team in 3 to 5 years. Yeah, since 96, so there you go. So,
Lee Versage, TSN 1200. Pierre, to Don's question about the 3 to 5 year plan, how does that affect sitting down with not only Eric, but Mark and Matt Duchesne as well, as far as negotiations are concerned? Because you would think from their perspective they would want to be in win-now mode, and that might be a long time for them to consider re-signing a long-term contract.
Well, I think Mark Stone is 25. Matt Duchesne's 26. One's a 91 birth, one's a 92. So if we can hit in that window, it's close to 30. And all I can tell you is we had 5 outstanding exit interviews. You've heard me talk about the exit interview with Erik Karlsson. Mark Stone, Matt Duchesne were, I think, second and third guys we met with. And I think they both want to be here long term. And they were honest and frank conversations, I think, about us getting better. And I think they know what the plan is. They know what our intentions are. And we hope we can keep him part of this team for a long time. The other two, if you care, were Craig Anderson and Mark Warwicki. They were 5 of the best exit interviews that I've had in the 3 years that we've been doing them. And they weren't fluffy conversations. They were honest, hard conversations about how we can get better, and having the players' input really mattered.
Oh, sorry. Don Brennan again. I think I was going to ask about Matt Duchesne, and because he is adamant, seems adamant that he wants to win now. I was going to ask you that question, but I think that maybe you answered it. Did you?
Yeah.
You sort of did. So can I just ask about further about Erik Karlsson? If by some chance you do need to replace Erik Karlsson, are you thinking that you will go outside of the organization in a free agent mode, or are you thinking that a guy like Thomas Chabot and whatever else that you have in the depth department comes up and fills that void?
Well, we think Thomas Chabot can be a star in this league. I think he's just scratching the surface. So when it comes to Thomas Chabot, we know we have a real good, young, quality. Whether he's a 1, 2, 3, 4 down the road, we know we have something special there. And on top of that, the 2 kids we took in that draft, him and Colin White, they're mature beyond their years. They get it. When Colin White comes to us and said, in the exit interview to Randy and myself, you know, you guys called up the right people from Belleville. At times, it wasn't right for me to come up. I needed to play those 20 minutes, to play on the power play, penalty killing, handle the puck more. He even told us, when I came up here the second time, I felt I was more prepared than when I was here earlier in the year. You know what? For a 20-year-old to say that, when a lot of his friends on the U.S. team are in the NHL, that shows me maturity beyond belief. And it's the same thing with Thomas Chabot. Some of these things he said in the exit interviews, I said, wow, we all wish we could have been that mature 20 years old. So I think we've got something special there in Thomas.
Hi, Pierre. Ken Warren, Sports Media. You talked about Duchesne and Stone. Did I hear something out of the town hall that you had talked contract with Stone's people this week?
Yep.
And is all options on the table there in terms of length of term, whether it's looking at extension, long-term extension, or a bridge, or however?
Yeah. Craig Oster of Newport and myself, we had discussions during the season. We just felt after the season would be the best time, and Monday we ended up talking. We had a really productive talk, but that doesn't mean we know Mark's going to be here next year if we can't come to an agreement, and that gives us another year to have a contract. But that is one contract we can talk about. We talked on Monday. It was probably the whole, we left here about 6:30, so the whole time from here to Orleans we talked, and it was really productive. We're going to sit down at some point in time, probably in May or June, no timetable on this, and try to hammer out something.
So you would want, ideally, have that done before the Karlsson thing, if you could, or does that one relate to the other?
I might have gotten an email, maybe not gotten an email, maybe warned, maybe not warned to can't talk about future contracts on a specific player from our league. So I'm going to be very careful on that one. But when it comes to Mark Stone, we've had talks and they were productive, and we feel confident that we can do something.
Entre les entraîneurs, les gros contrats à Matt Duchesne, Erik Karlsson, puis le repêchage, tu as des gros dossiers dans les prochains mois, mais y a-t-il d'autres dossiers peut-être plus petits, des actions que tu pourrais poser comme directeur général pour aider ton équipe dans le court terme?
On cherche toujours d'améliorer notre équipe, que ce soit à court, moyen et long terme. Mes conversations avec certains gérants continuent à travers surtout ceux qui ne sont pas des séries, mais on regarde toujours à améliorer l'équipe. Donc, on va toujours chercher, que ce soit des petites ou grosses actions, d'aller dans la bonne direction.
Puis, quand tu regardes ton équipe, où elle était l'année passée à pareille date, puis cette année, c'est où tu penses les endroits où tu penses qu'il y aurait moyen d'améliorer cette équipe-là pour la ramener?
Il faut qu'on soit plus consistant. faut pas qu'on soit une équipe que, je pense, 50 matchs, on a donné le premier but. Tirer de la rigueur dans ce ligue-ci, c'est difficile de gagner des matchs. Bonne question.
Pierre, Dan Sagan, CBC. Can I ask you a bit more about Eric Carlson? I know you can't really talk about future contracts, you said, but you've already told us you're going to offer him a contract July 1st. You've already said it's going to be an 8-year offer. When it comes to the actual dollar amount, and that's the only question right now, how do you sit down and figure out what you can offer? Is it a percentage of whatever the max is that year, or is it, will you rival what other people will offer? Do you go head-to-head with them that way? There must be a formula that you have in mind for when you put together an offer for a contract like that?
I think we've addressed it, Dan. I want to be respectful here. I think we addressed it in the town halls. If you're ready to pay the fine, I'll go and sit down with you at coffee afterwards. We have a CBA. I'm not allowed to say anything until July 1st.
Murray Pam, The Sporting News. At the town hall on Monday, you mentioned Mike Hoffman's exit interview, and you said you challenged him. Are you able to elaborate on that?
For sure. Pure talent, Mike Hoffman is in the top percentile of this league. Shooting ability, skating ability, passing ability. Mike Hoffman is a pure natural talent. I think we could all say that at the forward position, he's one of our best or maybe our most skilled guy. And Randy and myself just challenged him on where do you think, on a scale of whatever level, how do you think you played? Why was that? And more importantly, why will you be better next year? And he responded well.
Pierre, Lisa Wallace, Canadian Press. I'm just wondering, how much responsibility do you take for this season, and do you feel that maybe some of your off-season signings didn't turn out as well as you had hoped?
I take a lot of responsibility for what's happened. I think when you're at the head of the hockey operations and you finish in 30th place, you have to look in the mirror. Obviously, when it comes to off-season signings, some didn't pan out as well as we expected. I took full responsibility with that. I've always said that when it comes to top-end guys, we're going to consult maybe the scouting staff a bit more. When it comes to role players, especially with having 18 back-to-backs this year, you're going to, because your third and fourth line need to play, you're going to consult more with the coaches. And, things didn't work out with some of them. Some of them have moved on to other teams and are doing really well. Maybe it was just not the right fit for us. But as individuals, they're all great people.
Do you guys feel you lack to replace some of the leadership that you'd had down that playoff stretch? I mean, you lose Mark Mathot, and then Clark MacArthur isn't able to play. That there was maybe that lack in the room this season?
Yeah, it's a good point, Lisa. Clark, unfortunately, didn't pass his medical. We couldn't control that. It was something that I wouldn't call it unexpected, but it caught us by surprise. And maybe we would have been more ready for it had it come earlier in the summer. And on Mark Mathot, Mark's a great guy. We thoroughly enjoyed having him here, and Vegas paid a lot of money to get a team in the league. They're doing well. Congrats to them. And when we tried to acquire Mark back, there's no secret. It's there. Everyone knows that. But what they got in return, we couldn't match what Dallas offered.
Pierre, Marc Brassard du droit. Votre défensive n'a pas été très bonne la saison. Vous avez alloué 70 buts de plus que l'année dernière. C'est une affaire d'équipe, j'imagine, mais vos gardiens en particulier ont eu une mauvaise saison. Est-ce que tu penses que tu as besoin de faire un upgrade à ce niveau-là, ou est-ce que, vu que les gars sont sur contrat pour encore 2 ans, tu es les mains liées?
Non. Quand ça vient à nos gardiens de but, c'est une des grandes raisons pourquoi on a eu le succès de l'année passée. Je pense comme ça l'arrive à certains joueurs. Je pense que les deux ils ont eu une mauvaise année. Les deux vont l'admettre qu'ils ont eu une moins bonne année. Des fois, c'est de la manière que l'équipe joue en avant d'eux autres. On ne peut pas juste mettre le blâme sur eux. Donc, ce côté-là, on s'attend que c'est les deux gardiens qu'on a sous contrat pour la Ligue nationale reviennent l'année prochaine. Et on est convaincu qu'ils vont rebondir.
Chris Stevenson from The Athletic. Pierre, just in terms of team building and talking about implementation of younger players, do you look at getting away from that model you've had of having kind of, let's face it, overpaid older guys on your fourth line and go with maybe that's where you use some of the younger guys?
Yeah, I think our model has to be a bit better how we align our dollars, and so we can have as much cap flexibility as possible. Obviously, some of the veterans that we had really helped us in our player front and what we needed to achieve last year, and their performances weren't as good as we expected this year. And for that, that's on me.
Just to follow up on the decision to keep your pick this year, is that because you don't project having as high a pick next year, or do you just consider the potential for this draft greater than next year's draft?
It's a combination of those things, Chris. I think at the same time, if you can get a player into your lineup, and there's a good chance, nothing's for sure. Some guys it depends how physically, mentally mature the player that we would take in the top 5 is ready to step in the NHL. But at the same time, we're going to take the guy that's going to help us the best to have long-term success in the NHL. But if you can implement that player in your lineup right away, I think it makes you a better team. Next year we could be 1 point out of the playoffs, and we could end up winning the lottery. And that's the thing that we have to look at. I think it was Philly that went from 13 to 2 last year in the first of the 3 picks. So we have to analyze all those situations. And there's a certain chance to take. But if you can put a player in your lineup right away, it definitely helps you be a better team immediately.
Un peu plus tôt cette semaine, Guy Boucher a dit qu'à chaque année, on recommence à zéro. Vous avez parlé des rencontres que vous avez eues avec vos joueurs. Est-ce que les rencontres que vous avez eues, sans apporter de changement majeur, vous ont confirmé qu'avec ce groupe-là, malgré tout le négatif de la saison, vous êtes capable de recommencer à 9 l'an prochain?
Bonne question. C'est une réponse bien simple. Oui. Je peux élaborer un peu là-dessus, disant que je pense que beaucoup de choses sont arrivées cette année. Je ne pense pas que ça va se répéter. Puis, on a eu beaucoup de circonstances qu'on aurait peut-être dû faire un peu mieux avec. Que ce soit le groupe, les cadres exécutifs, que ce soit les entraîneurs, que ce soit les joueurs. Donc, ce côté-là, je pense qu'il y a beaucoup de choses qui ne vont pas se répéter l'année prochaine, qui vont nous aider à avoir une meilleure équipe et plus de succès.
I know you don't want to look back, you look forward. How much of this is about accountability, both from the coach and from the players in that room? And how much does your accountability need to improve next season if this team is going to improve?
I think accountability comes from everyone, Bruce. I think accountability comes from the general manager, the assistant general manager, coaching staff, players, trainers, equipment guys. The one thing that I think really helped us last year, and one of the best meetings we ever had, it was a meeting right before the playoffs started. We got all our hockey staff together. I remember because Brian was so good in that meeting. And we just talked about, we don't know, we could be playing 4 games and we could be playing 28 games. And we said to ourselves, no matter how late we come in, no matter how hard it is, no matter injuries that happen, questionable refereeing, we're going to be positive. And I think it helped us thrive to 1 goal of the Stanley Cup final. This year, we found too many excuses. We got to move forward from that. Does that help you out?
Well, what was, I know you're not going to tell us everything, but what was the feedback from the players on the coaching staff in the exit meeting?
The players didn't blame the coaches. They blamed more themselves than anything else. It's no secret that Randy and I met the players without Guy. And it wasn't about not Guy being there. I didn't ask him, what do you think of the coach? It wasn't that. It was, what happened this year? What are we going to do to be better next year? Why this will not repeat itself? That was more it. Why we did it. We felt that it was probably the right thing to have meeting with the coaches before. So our management group had that before with the coaches. And then after that, it was, we don't really talk to the players except for, the week before the season. We'll talk maybe about life things and maybe who do you pick for the Masters or something like that. The GM side of it doesn't really, we let our coaches coach, and at the same time, we wanted to know what happened this year from their perspective.
Cody Cece's RFA, can you, again, I guess elaborate if there's any negotiations or you spoke to his agent at all?
The only conversation that I've had with JP, we've talked over the last few days. Team Canada has inquired about Cody because he's got an impending contract. There's insurance things. So that's what we talked about, and we said once this was settled, we were going to sit down and have a contract. But those talks aren't as advanced as probably the Mark Stone talks. Also, Philip Chaplik has been returned to Belleville after his stint at Belleville. He's going to try out for the Czech team. They got games 2 weekends from now. And as soon as Philip Gustafsson is done, he's going to go join the Swedish national team. They have a tournament also after Belleville is done this weekend, just for your information.
Pierre, you've got some of your high-end players to sign. Are you confident you're going to have the money, the budget to get it done?
Yes, without a doubt.
Have you set your budget for, do you know how much you're going to be able to spend?
We will be as competitive team as we need to be.
But at the outdoor game, the owner said he was going to tie salaries to revenues, and we've seen a bad season. Will you have less money for salaries based on what we've seen?
Well, Terry, all I'll tell you is that whatever funds we've needed to have success, they've been available. And I gave this great example at the town hall meeting, the first one. When it came time to make the Matt Duchesne deal, I let Mr. Melnick know on November 1st, we were sitting in Belleville together. And I said, there's a good chance we can get Matt Duchesne. This is what we're looking at. There's a difference of about 1.5 to 2 million in salaries when everything changes. And his simple answer, well, is it a good hockey deal? And I said, yes, it is. He says, well, don't worry about that. Just go ahead and do it. And that's the best way I can answer that question.
Callum Fraser, NHL.com. I was wondering, with two goaltenders that statistically severely underperformed this year, especially after last season, how would you assess Mike Condon and Craig Anderson's play this year? And with their contracts moving forward, do you simply just decide to go in with them to next season?
Yeah, at this point in time, there are two goalies for next year. We all know that they underperformed this year, but it's also how the team played in front of them, what type of scoring chances were they higher quality. Both know they can be better. Both feel they've underperformed. Both were a huge reason of why we went where we did last year. Condon's played during the regular season. Anderson's played in the playoffs and in the regular season. We feel they can bounce back. We've addressed it with them. And it happens. Sometimes certain players have a bad year and bounce back, and we feel that, with goaltending, sometimes it's a bit more obvious. But we have faith in both guys, and both guys will be back, and we have faith that they can lead us to the playoffs again.
Just going back to Guy Boucher, how do you balance, Pierre, the difference between what happened this year, which obviously wasn't great, and the fact that in years past, it seems like at least the perception that 7 coaches in 11 years, that the players have a lot of input, and if they don't like the coach, then the coach might be gone. That perception of the difference between what happened this year and the fact that you might want to stick with something that's consistent so that the players understand that it's more on them than it is the coaching staff?
Well, hockey management decides who the coach is, not the players. If we feel we need to make a change after evaluation process, we will do so. If we feel that we can move forward with Guy after evaluation process, we will do so. At the same time, we all have to be better. Management, coaches, players, we all have to be better. When we left Sweden, we were 5th overall in the league. We ended up 30th. Something happened. And we have to reflect on it, evaluate it, figure out why it happened, and more importantly, figure out why it won't happen again.
Two more questions.
I think we'll do two more.
Sorry, Pierre, I got
That's all right.
two questions for you. Number one, I know this was something that was asked you in the town hall meetings. Do you anticipate adding to your hockey operations staff in terms of personnel, scouting, things of that nature?
And I think I addressed it. Obviously, we have a model here in Ottawa that we think works. You know, whether it was when John Muckler was here or Brian Murray or myself, we're not a big staff. When it comes to management, you know, when you're in the room with myself or Randy, your opinion matters because there's not a lot of voices. And you know that you have to work hard at it because you're a strong voice in there. When it comes to scouts, I've been on staffs in Montreal, New York, where probably there was too many people, too many voices. You ended up chasing bad players instead of focusing on the good ones. And if we feel we can add the right people, we will definitely do that. There's no doubt that we'll add the right people if we feel we can do that. But at the same time, we got the same hockey resources that we've had pretty much for the last few years, and we've drafted well. Our new chief amateur scout for the last few years, Trent Mann, is an unbelievable talent evaluator. I even said at a town hall meeting, it pains me to say this, but I think he's a better talent evaluator than I ever was. So I think we're in good hands there. We've made changes to our pro scouting staff. As you guys know, I do like to go scout. I went on a scouting trip because I love NHL hockey. Nothing excites me more than NHL hockey. I couldn't wait. Yesterday we had a town hall meeting, and I couldn't wait to not leave there to go watch Winnipeg and Minnesota, but I ended up catching the last period of that one, or most of it, listening on TSN 1200 driving home. And at the same time, I stopped to eat on the way home, and I got to see the first period of Vegas and Los Angeles. Playoff hockey is so good. Like, NHL hockey is so good. Like, at times, we don't realize the game is such in a good place right now. But being in those playoffs, like, there's nothing like the rush last year. So I know I went a bit off topic, but we're good on personnel.
And my second question, you're talking about, I think you said you're off to Barrie today. So obviously you're going to take a look at the Svechnikov kid.
And we signed Aaron Luchuk, too.
Yeah. There is a percentage of your fans who believe the Ottawa Senators are not comfortable with Russian-born players. Would you like to just put that perception to rest, or can you address the perception that somehow this organization would be cool to maybe drafting or developing a Russian player?
Whomever it might be, how many picks we have, if we feel a Russian player is the best player, we'll take him. There's no doubt about that. We're not going to privy our fans by not taking a specific player because of nationality or anything like that. We haven't done so in the past. I think when Brian Murray hired me as chief scout, I don't think we've drafted one Russian since. But there can be exceptions to the rule, and moving forward, I think we'll draft whomever is the best player.
Mark, and then we'll wrap.
Pierre, just you talk about excuses. How much did the schedule you think played into your problems? Coming back from Sweden, the big trip afterwards.
It played into it, but to me, it's not a reason why we weren't very good. I think every team has a tough travel schedule. The Western teams have tough travel schedules. Obviously, some of the teams based out of the New York area or surroundings don't travel as much. It's the NHL. The guys are treated well. You've been on the planes, Mark. You've been in the hotels. We have nothing to complain about. So I think we got to move forward, but to me, not a big fan of excuses.
And one last thing is, Anybody requiring post-year surgery?
No. Good question. Last year we had almost everyone banged up after our playoff run. I just want to make sure. No, everything to the best of my knowledge. Like last year, I remember we came up here, and then as I'm walking down, we were told that Derek Brassard needed to be operated, and it was as we were walking down the stairs. So I don't want to mislead anyone. We don't want to mislead anyone here, but to the best of our knowledge right now, no.
Great. The one thing, Pierre, I think you mentioned at town hall, sorry, somebody asked me, is every new Jonathan Pitt, I know you're going to do something at development camp.
Yeah. Under the approval of Randy Lee, the most prestigious award at development camp is always the hardest worker. If you look at the winners or recipients of that award, they're probably all in the NHL or close to being NHL or will be NHL players. So we're going to rename that award the Jonathan Petrie Award in honor of him. He spoke at our development camp, and in the I don't know how many years I've been here now, 11 years that I've been here, it was probably the most heartfelt, honest meeting that we've ever had. And I think it's just makes sense. And it came from one of our fans. You know, how can you honor him? And I think Jonathan being a younger person, I think it reflects well on our prospects.
Great. We'll wrap today. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Merci.